Okay, welcome back for the post-lunch session. My name is Rajesh Ranganathan. I'm a VP of Science and Regulatory Advocacy at Pharma, the trade organization. It's my pleasure to moderate this afternoon session, and we're a few minutes behind, but hopefully we'll catch up. So this session is about business models that support bioresource discovery collaborations, and so the objective is to examine potential pre-competitive models. We've had some discussion about what that word pre-competitive might mean in the pre-lunch session, and that has added some spice to the debate, hopefully, and can sort of how they can support in discovery efforts and opportunities across multiple stakeholder groups. So what you're actually going to hear is an interesting arc of 4 talks. You'll begin with the patient advocacy group and then transition to a sort of a new model that one of a pharmaceutical companies using, and then talk about a public-private partnership model driven by the foundation of the NIH, and then close out with a sort of a broad-scale effort of bringing many stakeholders to the table to think about a target discovery effort. So you have the bios for the speakers, so I'm not going to go into any detailed introductions. So let's just get started with the first of the 4 speakers, with Lynn Matrisian, who's the VP of Science and Medical Affairs at the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network.
So I think it's very appropriate that we start with the patient perspective after our discussion at the end of the last session. So we're going to talk about really the application of some of the exciting work that we heard about in the first sessions to a very specific disease, that of pancreatic cancer. So for those of you who don't know, pancreatic cancer is on the rise. It is this year the 3rd leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States, surpassing the number of deaths from breast cancer this year. It is the only of the major cancers with a 5-year survival rate in the single digits, and is becoming more and more, therefore, a health threat to the United States. So at the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, our goal is to double survival by 2020 as a place to start, as a platform to then make much more substantial improvements in survival as we go forward. So how are we going to do that? Well, we take a very comprehensive approach to this. We do have an office here in Washington, D.C., the Government Affairs Office. We have affiliate networks all across the United States in more than 60 cities that raise awareness and raise funds for the effort. We have a research program, give grants to mostly academic institutions in order to support basic translational and clinical research in this space. And we have a patient services group that I'm going to spend most of my time talking about now, and leveraging that to make advances in this disease. So our patient services group was really focused on a call center called Patient Central, where we get more than 12,000 contacts in a year, individuals or their families that call into this service. They receive information on the disease and the treatment itself. They can, our associates, our highly trained associates, can do a very specialized search for information that that particular patient is looking for. We keep a comprehensive clinical trial database that's updated on a monthly basis for all the trials in pancreatic cancer that are open in the United States, and can provide specific information for that patient to take back to their treating physician on clinical trials that they are eligible for within a range of the zip code in which they're willing to travel, and a lot of support resources. This is a case management system, so that if the individual calls back, they can always be reconnected to the same associate and continue that conversation. So that clinical trial finder really ends up being the basis of a lot of the research work that we've done as a group. We're able to look at the landscape of clinical trials in this disease across the United States, and look at opportunities. And this is made available both to patients through an online portal, so they can do their own clinical trial searches, or to healthcare professionals to look at that landscape of clinical trials, see what is currently currently ongoing in this field, see what gaps need to be filled, and to use that in part of their decision making and going forward with new clinical trials. Now, one of our goals is, of course, to increase clinical trial enrollment. Because of this clinical trial database, we're actually able to estimate the number of pancreatic cancer patients who go on clinical trials in the U.S. At any one time. Our estimate is there was 3.9% of the number of newly diagnosed cases that went on to clinical trials in 2011. That went up to 4.2% in 2014. But of those callers who call our call center and get information on clinical trials, our clinical trial enrollment rate is 15.5%. So we think this is a way to encourage enrollment into those clinical trials. We're also able to give sponsors information on how many how many times their trial is given out at any particular time. So this kind of basis has led us to say, okay, here's an opportunity. We see touch more patients with pancreatic cancer than really any place in the world that we know of. So how can we take advantage of that? How can we learn from that to make more rapid advances in a disease which so desperately needs those kinds of advances? So one way we're doing that is a collaboration with the peer from Genetic Alliance. The peer system is to start a registry so that patients can record their experiences and their outcomes, and that researchers can learn from this. And this system is one in which the patient themselves consent, identify both their privacy settings and their access settings, and so that any individual who's interested in getting that data can contact us. We can give that data out depending on the wishes of the patient themselves. So this kind of data is very much in the control of the patient. This has led us then as well to say then we need more information in there, and we need some of this genomic information that we've been talking about this morning that would be available as well. And we need to learn more from these patients in this respect. So we've also started a program that's called Know Your Tumor, a precision medicine service that is designed to lead to better treatment options. This program has been in existence for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. We have enrolled more than 500 patients across the United States into this program from 38 states. And this is because these patients enroll through our Patient Central by calling into this call center. They come from not just academic institutions, but they come from community settings as well throughout the United States. At this moment, we've hit 200 now completed reports and are able to look at the genetic profiling of these patients using this panel. So the system is set up so that the biopsy, of course, is obtained at the site that the patient is being seen. It is then sent centrally to a central location in which the tissue is then allocated to different molecular diagnostic companies, and this is set up so that we can change that vendor and change the analysis that's being done at any specific time, depending on advancements in the science. The information that we're getting at the moment for the first group of patients has been both genomic panels, information on a 343 gene panel that was really designed for all solid tumors and not pancreatic cancer specifically, and then a panel of proteins that was analyzed as well. So we see the kind of molecular information that one would expect to see from pancreatic cancer. Most of this cancer is driven by alterations in the KRAS gene, with alterations in P53, P16, and SMAD4 as well. Now, when we originally started to think about setting up this kind of resource, our scientific and medical advisory board said, no, you can't do this for pancreatic cancer. Yes, it's been successful in other cancers, but because there's just no mutations other than an undruggable KRAS mutation that's driving this particular cancer. So it's really not worthwhile to do this. However, we felt that the only way we're really going to learn whether this is worthwhile or not, and the only way to really understand why would pancreatic cancer be different than lung cancer or melanoma or any of the other cancers as well, was to actually get our feet wet, get in there, get molecular profiling information on this, and see what kind of alterations we see. So in the meantime, then there's been several very nice Nature papers that have come out, particularly from Andrew Bianchen and his group, the Australian Pancreatic Cancer Genome Initiative, which is part of the International Cancer Genome Consortium. And so they've been able to publish profiles then on pancreatic cancer patients and have seen a nice spectrum. About 24% they see have a deficiency in DNA damage repair, which would indicate treatment with damaging agents or, for instance, PARP inhibitors, and a number of other alterations, most of them in smaller percentages. But yes, nevertheless, things that are druggable and actionable with the kind of drugs that are available in the cancer space now for other diseases. And so we're able to verify that, yes, our patients have these kinds of alterations as well. And not only do we have the information from them, but we have patients that are currently undergoing treatment, that are currently seeking clinical trials, and the next step for their treatment that we're able to identify using this process. So the Know Your Tumor results, again, we have about 40% that we think, based on current understanding, could be actionable. And a lot of those have clinical trial options or off-label treatment options that would be available for those patients. So we have the patients, we have the information, and we have a way to collect information. Not only we do collect it from their treating physician, there is follow-up information that goes into this process, into the Know Your Tumor process, but then there's also the patient-reported outcomes as well that will enhance that information that we're gathering. So again, from a patient perspective, just an anecdote, but one patient that we're able to help was a man who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2013. He was treated with an aggressive regimen that is a standard of care at the moment, FOLFIRINOX, but was stopped for intolerance. Started on the other standard of care regimen, which is gemcitabine nab-paclitaxel, got the analysis and found a BRCA2 mutation, which we see in about 5% of pancreatic cancer patients, an ALK amplification, got a number of potentially actionable therapies, both clinical trials as well as off-label treatments as a result of this analysis. Enrolled in a ceritinib trial, did see progression, then enrolled in a patient with a PARP inhibitor, and now has a confirmed partial response, is still on therapy, and is doing very well at the moment. So again, anecdotal information, but ones that say we've been able to help at least some patients. So again, we are collecting results from these studies, looking at whether there's any change in our overall goal is to say, does this kind of information actually help outcomes in pancreatic cancer patients? And the preliminary indication is, yes, you see some survival benefit by following this treatment. So our next step is then to go to a clinical trial consortium that is actually running the kind of molecularly indicated trials that we see in this, and we're in the process of developing that based on this experience. But the long run is that this kind of of service to pancreatic cancer patients is not possible without the large-scale genomic analysis and all the targeted therapies that we've been talking about. And so this research and all the work that's being done, we must find a way to work together in order to advance this field so that we can help these patients.